Diane's garden.
Yeah, she hangs out in England, at least in a virtual background.
Welcome everyone to this special evening. We have our third articulation featuring Yael Kanarek and Rabbi Alicia Magal. And throughout this entire year, the Amen Institute will be featuring 30 artists from across the world, sharing their interpretations and their inner mullings with their chavrutot, rabbinic chavrutot. And throughout the year, we're going to see a beautiful array of art. And without further ado, Priya, would you like to introduce these artists and rabbis for us?
Absolutely. It's a great honor. So welcome everyone. As Devere said, to the third articulation, we have a very special chavruta pairing of Rabbi Alicia Magal and Yael Kanarek, who have been meeting over the past 7 weeks and plus to discuss this parsha, this upcoming parsha of Miketz, and to come up with a fabulous interpretation and art and commentary. So that is what we will be discussing tonight. So for the bios, Yael Kanarek is an established Israeli-American multidisciplinary artist. A student of Kabbalah since 2016, she has been working on regendering the Bible in response to the critical void of canonical text in Lashon Isha. On Simchat Torah 2020, she established Beit Torah for the ritual and study of regendered Bible. And we're going to get into that. And Rabbi Alicia Magal lived in Israel for 7 years and was a tour guide there. Magal developed interactive programs and museum tours as museum educator at the Skirball Museum in Los Angeles, worked as program director for Temple Emmanuel, a large Reform synagogue in Beverly Hills, and served as rabbinic intern for Kehilat Israel, a large Reconstructionist synagogue in the Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles. She received rabbinical ordination in 2003 from the Aleph Jewish Renewal Rabbinical Program and from the Academy for Jewish Religion in Los Angeles. Rabbi Magal served as spiritual leader for Makom Shalom, a Jewish renewal congregation in Chicago before moving to Sedona in 2006, where she currently serves as rabbi of the Jewish community of Sedona and the Verde Valley. So I'm so glad to have you two here. And we will start with Yael in presenting the piece that she has worked on.
Hey, thank you, Bria and Veer, and of course, a huge thank you to Rabbi Magal. I'm very fortunate that we had the opportunity to work together because not everyone can meet Torah. So we were assigned the Miketz portion, which is a really, I would say, very visual parasha. You have the Parah's dreams. There's a lot of talk in the background. I hear children. So yes, we have Parah's dreams, and we have, in our case, we have the cows coming in and out of the water and eating each other. And then we have this amazing story of Tosef and her sisters. But in between, we have a really interesting interaction between Tosef and Parah, which I felt that it was a kind of recipe for a relationship with divine power. So let me just backtrack for a second. So just a few words about the regendered Torah or Bible in general. The regendered Bible is taking Torah and flipping the genders of all the characters. So all the male characters become female, all the female become male, In some cases, also the gender of animals change. The gender of places change because everything means something. So all names mean something. Some of the meanings got lost, but for the most case, we know them. We understand what they mean. So they had to be regendered too. So now we have a kind of landscape that is in women's names. Mitzrayim becomes Metzirot. Paro becomes Par'a. Elohim becomes Elohim. Yosef becomes Tosef. And this is the kind of world that is now the primary actors in it are all women. And I was really, really attracted to what Tosef says to Par'a just before she interprets her dream. And you can see it in the center. And Tosef answered Par'a saying, without me, biladai, Elohim will answer to Para''s well-being. And I thought that this biladai was really, really interesting, because what I hear there is that Tosef is saying to her, I'm removing my own ego for this message to come through to you. It's not me who's speaking, it's Elohim who's speaking. And it says, I don't know if you know this experience, that sometimes you sort of, in a particular situation that you feel that is greater than you have to remove yourself to be able to allow for that to happen, to whatever needs to happen, should happen. I don't see anybody's faces, so I don't know if you're, if you're nodding yes or no, but I will assume that everyone had some kind of experience like that in their lives. And then I think was really interesting to me is the kind of response that Par'a had to Tosef. Now, this is the good Par'a. There's several Par'as, I think about 5. I know for most of us, when we hear Par'a, we only think about one ruler, one evil ruler, but there are actually several of them. And this is, I call her the good Par'a. And if, in the Kabbalist tradition, Par'a means Pe'ra, a bad mouth. But here we have a Pe that is a friend, Pe'rea. So it's a friendly mouth. And the friendliness comes right in the attributes that Par'a, with an enormous amount of abundance, is building around Tosef. And she says things that we never really used to hear in regards to women in the Bible, such as, and Par'a said to her maidservants, can we find a woman like this who the spirit of Elohim is with her? Or, and Par'a said to Tosef, because Elohim has shown you all this, there is no one as smart and as wise as you. And then she dresses her up and she gives her signet ring. And then she puts her in the second chariot. And everyone around calls Tosef Emraka, which in Torah, what we call the traditional Torah, is Avrech, which the meaning is unclear. And Tamar, my collaborator, found in Avrech, Avrach, and that became Emraka, which means soft mother, another attribute. So we have wise and smart. We have the woman whose spirit with Elohim is in her. And then Par'a gives her another title, Tzafnat Panchi, which really translates to the code cracker. She has cracked the code of the dream, and gives her a husband. In Torah, it's a wife named Osnat. In Torah, here, Tamar again kind of moved around the letters and came up with a tanes. You are a miracle. So Tosef is receiving a husband, a helpmate, whose name is Your Miracle. So there's this kind of incredible abundance that comes as a response of that act that Tosef did, saying Biladai, without me, and allowing the power and the spirit and the wisdom of Elohim to come through her. And this is what this piece is about. This is what I wanted to convey. That kind of, it was so great when we regender to really read all these attributes given by a woman ruler to a very wise and capable woman. Yeah, so this felt to me like the most interesting part to work on, and leave the dreams, the visuals. I mean, it's all built in everyone's imagination. So what is there to add anyway? So this is the piece. Without me.
Thank you, Yael. It was so incredible to speak with you and to hear that you are regendering the whole Bible. So I wasn't sure what that meant, and I started reading and coming to one of your classes, and I had to sort of chant it in trope to get into the feeling. So I spent a week saying, I don't understand. How did she do this? And then finally I got into it. So then I thought, well, I'm expecting an illustration. If it's going to be a woman Joseph, Tosef, and a woman Rabbi, Parah, then in my mind I saw, okay, this woman comes and they're together. And then, wow, next week it's going to be where all the sisters, not brothers, come together and there's a family reunification. And at that point, my friends, I burst into tears. It was so overwhelming. It was so incredible that I was very, very emotional. Is there something you wanted to say, Dvir?
Me?
Somebody? Anyway, so I started looking at the artwork and I wanted to find out more about Yael and her artwork. So I want you to know that she's a wordsmith. She takes words and she creates of them something more than you would have seen had you just read it. And you should know that she did the beautiful installation at the new embassy in Zimbabwe with huge letters, and she'll tell you about that later, as well as fine jewelry with tiny gold and silver letters in Hebrew and messages. She's a message wizard. So I looked at this piece, and all of a sudden I saw sun and moon and satellites, and I saw an axis. Do you see the axis? If I put my cursor, that's it, up and down all the way through. So it reminded me of a revolving body, celestial heavenly body that's rotating. And since the words are all curved, I found myself going like this to try to read them back and forth, around. And it occurred to me that there's this revolving story that's happening. So it's not an illustration. It's a moment where Parah, the good Pharaoh, and Tosef, the wise Joseph, Tosef, but as a woman, come together. And Yael explained it so beautifully, so Kabbalistically, that we need to see the whole identity and not get stuck in our childhood early commentaries. So through the language, I saw this whirling body of sun, moon, stars, which of course took me back to Tosef's childhood dream, where the sun and moon and 11 stars bowed down to her, and where she didn't understand that this isn't coming from her. She may be beautiful and smart, but it's all a gift from God. And so at that moment, and I write about it extensively in the Devar Torah, so you can read that on the website, but look at the middle. What is in the center of this globe? Biladai in Hebrew and without me in English. But the letters are themselves empty. They're simply shaded and white. They're empty, which expresses what Tosef is saying. It's not me. I'm getting my ego out of the way. It's coming through me. And she finally understands, as we must in our lives, that if we get out of the way of the divine inspiration, it'll flow through and it will serve some good for others. And so that really struck me. The more I looked at the piece, the more I saw the impact of the words. Do you notice that the attributes given to Tosef by Pharaoh, by the husband, says you're a miracle, by the people who see her in the chariot and say, you're Emraka, you're a soft mother, they're in pink. So everything is sort of hinted at. You have to keep looking. You have to sort of get in the orbit, literally the orbit of the words. So you see spirit of Elohim is in you, and you see who could be a woman like this. And all of these attributes are in pink. Now the logo is also tucked in. I don't know if you see it, but there looks like a taf, but it's really a yud and a taf. There we go. So there's the logo, and we have Torah ta, and her Torah is there, and I'm sure Yael will speak more about it when we have our conversation. But there was so much in here that I had never imagined. Let me see if there's anything I wrote that I haven't told you. Pretty much all of the explanations that I gave, that Yael gave, I describe in my piece. But what I wrote was Code Cracker, a sweet and shocking commentary. Sweet because look what happens with this female Parah, female Tosef, who come together, and Parah appreciates the spirit of God that she sees in this Hebrew slave, and that's very sweet. But shocking because it was my first entry into Torah, Torah Ta, the idea of regendering. And there is one conversation that I want to reconstruct when Yael is on the screen together with me. So I think as we look here, we all have to be code crackers. We want to enter this whirling retelling of the ascendance of Tosef after she had descended 3 times to a pit, to slavery, to prison. And finally now she has ascended and emerged into the light. Look at the colors. Yellow, ochre, orange, it's all light. And this third candle of Hanukkah, this day of increasing light, perfect timing for this. And then she protests, Biladai, it's without me. And she's not just being modest, she has truly learned that without her, if she moves aside, the power flows through her. And so it's an invitation for all of us to say, this skill, this knowing, this intuition is coming from another source. And I'm just stepping aside and getting out of the way. No ego, no boastfulness. What a huge transformation Tosef has had. And if we spin the globes further, spin, it will point to the meeting with her sisters in Vatigash. I've changed that name to Vatigash, not Vaigash. When she finally trusts her sisters, banishes her women advisors in the palace, Grand Hall, lets down her defenses, and cries, as I did when I first came in encounter with this beautiful art piece.
Thank you, Rabbi Magal and Yael. These insights that you've come to discover in each other's work, in working together through your chavruta, I think there's something very poignant in how it all transpired. And I was able to sit in on some of the chavrutot, which was a great honor for me, as I saw the unfolding of what does this mean? What does this Beit Torah Ta mean? Because we're talking about it now, and you've integrated it in such a way, Rabbi Magal, And I think for some of us and for some people, it's still a wild notion. It's a wild idea of, and you described having to look at it this way and that way and sit with it and revisit this idea. And Yael, I think this is such a powerful idea. It's so powerful, it shakes us to the core, because what does it mean? What does it do to the characters? What does it do to our own relationship to Torah, to Torah? The way that you've described it, I kind of want to go a little bit back into what Torah is.
I would just like to start for a minute, and I'd like to recreate one of the first conversations I had with Yael, because I think it's important for all of our viewers.
Okay.
I came out of the excitement of the beginning of the women's Jewish commentary in the 80s and 90s, where we looked, and I said to this Yael, I said, we were looking at the white spaces in between the black letters. What did Dina feel? What did Sarah say? What were the names of some of the women characters who are unnamed and have no voice? Let's give them a voice. Let's put them into poetry. Let's do some wonderful women's midrash. And I kept talking to her about how it was so exciting and so new to deal with the white spaces. And what did you answer, Yael?
Let's move to the black spaces.
You said they didn't go far enough.
That's true.
You said they didn't go far enough. So you said, okay, enough with the white spaces. We've done what we can with the little space left to us. Let's open it up and let's go to the black letters and actually regender everything. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, because if we've been reading Susanna Heschel's poetry about standing at Sinai, or we met, so many wonderful women's commentaries. I have the women's Torah commentary on my shelf, but it was all more about finding our way in what was allowed, or what was possible. And you said they didn't go far enough. So how did you take that gigantic, bold step to go right in and actually rescribe, reprint, envision the entire Torah to come to a more complete identity, I think?
I just want to say that to arrive at Torah, we had to go through the process that you described, that trying to find space in the white space, trying to build more feminine presence through liturgy. This is mostly the work that has been done, or through fiction or poetry. But the problem was that for me, at some point, I felt that we're beating around the bush, because it's great we can do that, but then when we go to teach our children, we teach them again exactly the same stories at the age when they are establishing their sense of social identity. Now try and undo that, So yes, we try to undo that, but we don't even fully believe that, because whenever we go to Torah again, Torah as we know it, again, we have to deal with this very, very tight place. It's not only the tight place, it's the mind, the way that the mind of Torah thinks, and also the limited space that is permitted for women in it, and mostly appreciated through the bearing of boys, or there's also very aggressive language against women, the women who are not participating in that. But it doesn't teach us something about that direct power of the connection with the divine. And I needed that.
I think there's something else that you needed that you talked about, and I've been thinking about it, especially now during the dark days where the light is so little, and we have Hanukkah where we're trying to increase light. We just lit the third candle. I'm wearing a little pin here with my third candle lit, and Hanukkah behind me. And one thing we can't do is share our cookies with people. The magic of being
it's Magen Davida now.
Yes, Magen Davida. But what you did is also to give name places their own vibrancy. And you did that with the name for Egypt, Metzerot. You did that with the Yeor, with Teor, and you went into the roots. And you know, those of you who've taken my class on Hebrew roots, you know that I just love to dig into the roots and find out where does this word come from. I'd like you to say something more about what Pharaoh says when she's on the banks of the river. Tell me about that. Tell everyone.
בחלומי אני עומדת על שפת התיאור, which is a beautiful line. So Yeol became Teor. In Hebrew, the Ya sound is future tense for male, so Ta would replace that. And when you go from, I mean, when we hear Yeol, we usually in English hear Nile, right? We don't even have any relationship to the Hebrew name of the river, right? Yeol. But it has the word light in it. So Teor means, or if you take the vowels out, you can read Ta'er, she will light, so future light. And standing on the banks, the word banks in Hebrew, safa, means lip, but also means language. So you can translate this, that Parah is saying, in my dream, I stand on the language of future light. And this, you know, when you understand, when you think about the dreams that come after that, she is standing on the banks, and those cows, now they're cows, they're coming out of the water. They're coming out of the future light. So in that moment, there's already, in a way, you can say a hint about Tosef coming, you know, that there is some kind of light coming, you know, in that future, in that dream. The light is already embedded into the dream. And this is the same river that later Moshe is going to be put on in the wicker basket and sent over to the daughter of Parah, another good Parah, right? You know, that she was raised there, right? So Moshe will be, Moshe literally means she will pull out of the water, is sent on that future light, because she's the one who then will have to lift the people and shape the people and shape the Elohim and shape the Elohim and the people, so they can actually somehow, even though with all the problems and trouble, have a connection, she basically builds the bond between the people and the Elohim by shaping the Elohim and shaping the people, and shaping the Elohim and shaping the people. So that teor, that future light, is there like a, you know, it's like a vein of light that is passing through Metzerot, through Egypt, for the place of tight place or in sorrow.
Can you believe this is the kind of conversation we were having week after week, and we're letting you have a peek in it. And I knew that if you started talking about how you recrafted from the root of Yeor and got to Teor and got to light and got to, that everyone here would just be jumping in their seats and be so excited. So when you first look at the piece, you don't see all that. But if you go in, and if you read the footnotes, then you get what is Teor, what is Emrakah, what is Safanat Panchi, what is Atanes. I made sure that all of the footnotes were included so that you can look back, because these are tough names to get the first time, and say, I see where she got that. And it'll improve sevenfold your understanding of how Hebrew works, how the roots are all about verbs. You know, God is a verb. It's all becoming. It's all process. And so when you rethink this, this whole encounter in the palace, it suddenly is just vibrating with a whole new possibility that you never saw before. Not just the characters, but every piece, the river itself, the chariot, the cows, everything is part of the story, like in dream language. And when I studied with Joseph Campbell, back when I was at Sarah Lawrence, we did a lot of Jungian dream language and archetypes. And I see all of that coming through again, through your work and through the magnificent holy language that is Hebrew, that gives us so much opportunity, because as you remind us, the vowels were put in much, much later. The trope was put in much later, and you can play with it more. It's in the world of Yetzirah. It's in the world of creativity and hints and wordplay. And so you can really have fun with it. And I really invite everybody who's watching or who will see the recording later to come onto one of your classes with Tamar and Beit Torah and to support it and to sponsor one of the classes, or maybe a year's worth of classes. This is the kind of work that has to be supported and has to be recognized. It is new and exciting, and it shakes you up. It shakes you up.
Thank you. I'm happy to show the website if this helps. Just to show what's on the website, where I can share a screen. Ria, do you have questions for us? I mean, you've been with us on this. You know, you're not you weren't talking it, but you're listening, and you're, wise woman, and you're a student, a rabbinic student. So I was, I'm really curious to hear what your experience was. First time we met was for the Purim, right? The Megillat Mordechai. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, our school invited you to come and have us read the regendered version of Megillat Esther, Megillat Mordechai, as you were saying, and we read the entire thing. And you insisted on it too. Sometimes we're like, oh yeah, we got the idea, but no, it's like, read it in its full length. And I was very, very drawn to the idea. I think similar to Rabbi Magal, I've studied academic interpretation of the Torah in university. And when I got to the feminist readings of it, there was something that was like negative. There was a negative energy, because this is a world where we are secondary as women, where it's a patriarchal system, and so it's always seen in a socio-historical perspective where it's the underdog, and so then what it does, it creates a distance, and looking in from without, and I don't relate to it anymore. So when I saw this aspect of a way of interpreting Torah, it actually drew me in such a way. And it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
you're
it
all
also
ruined
resonates
forever.
I mean, it challenges.
Yeah,
It's really challenging. Yes.
It's a door that opens. It's a door of possibility in our consciousness that opens that wasn't there before. Whether we go through the door and we dwell in this new desert, Midbar, the place where things become, that's a different question. Maybe we look through the door and then we shut it, but that door is always going to be there.
You brought up something else that really is sitting with me, especially again during this time of darkness, that you said, hakarat hara, that we have to understand also the possibility of violence and bad parenting, and because so many of the things that are negative about the male characters, now we're putting on the female characters. Now I'm going, well, what are you doing with Dina? Or what are you doing with the warring? And how do you deal with that? And you made me see that you can't just look at the sweet side, at the collaborative, good, sort of helpful aspect, nurturing aspect of womanhood, and that there's other stuff to look at too. And that was very tough for me. I did not want to go there. I did not want to see it. But in our morning prayers, we say, Oseh Shalom v'Borei Hakol. And the Hakol, that God creates also what is not so great. if it all comes from God, then we have to bless the difficulties as well. And I'm struggling with that. But you said it so openly, and so you embraced it so easily that I've been sort of thinking of that all week. And as I'm kindling the light, I'm saying there's a lot of darkness. I have to recognize that there's darkness in ourselves, in our country, in our life. And we have to try to bring light. So I have a nechemta at the end. I have the idea of something hopeful, but you're making me see more of a totality in both male and female life stories than I was, I think, willing to do before. So I'm admitting that with this whole audience.
So I think what happens is because we women, we're generally in a defensive position. Our reaction is to prove that we're good. But once in Torah, we're able to experience a much larger gamut of human behavior, then we have actually the space. And now we are in basically the seat of power. We're in the driver's seat of the story, and our main relationship is with the Elohim. We have the mental, the psycho-spiritual space to start to acknowledge the darker side of women's behavior. And it's absolutely necessary in order to grow spiritually. Acknowledging the bad is absolutely essential. You can't do it without that. It's not possible. It's just really not possible, because what happens is that when with the acknowledgement of the dark side, then there comes also the ability to respond to it, their ability to acknowledge humanity in us. We can relax that muscle that is constantly being defensive. That muscle relaxes with Torah. Yeah, we're everything. We're good, bad, and ugly, and the whole damn shebang. It's not that we are. I would say that the way I understand Torah now, it's a tool for consciousness building. It builds a certain kind of consciousness. And generally, I think historically, I would sum it as it builds a consciousness of a peoplehood that is in relationship, a direct relationship with God. That's the kind of consciousness that Torah builds, but it builds it through the male line. Right. And it's been translated to many, many languages through the male line. So now Torah is expanded, and it brings that kind of relationship to the female line. And it allows for that kind of relationship to form when we think of a peoplehood, but we think of it first through the women's side in relationship to a divine that is in the women's likeness and image.
Yes. So that we can see ourselves there and not be a shulaim, just in the margins.
And once we build this much, much freer consciousness, it's not freer, it's just much, much bigger. And it knows where its God is, not in relation to man. The role of man is to be helpmate for that relationship. Then we can actually start thinking about building a reciprocal theology, a reciprocal society, spiritual society, where both men and women and gender non-conforming have the first relationship is with the Elohim, a direct relationship of tzelem and dmut, and then there is the helpmate, wherever you find that helpmate, in whatever form you find that, but it's your job to tell the helpmate what you need in order to better the relationship with the Elohim. So this is a completely different construct, because our feminist construct is reactive. It's always measuring against the man, and that's its limitation. That's what makes it small. And we've done it for long enough now, and we've done a lot of amazing work, and I'm not saying not do that. I say do that, but also start doing that. Also start building a new landscape for theology, a new series of thoughts. And Torah really is, I don't know how to say this, like a soft, pliable clay to work with. It really gives itself. It really lends itself for that kind of work. And that's what we're discovering. And none of that I knew before when I went into it. I didn't know any of that before. I'm in the process of discovering.
You even went into what we usually consider the boring parts, where it's just genealogy, names after names after names of the generations. And what you did with that, talk about the soft clay, you found meaning in each of the names and in the number of generations and what was being handed down. That was brilliant work.
We love that. The first time when I regendered it, I was like, oh no. Oh, the list of names. And then I'm looking at the names and suddenly I have to look at the meanings of the name. And suddenly I see that I start to understand them as qualities that are birthing qualities, birthing qualities, birthing qualities. These are transformations. It's a series of transformations. So we can say something like, what is the series, the 10 transformations from Chova, she who is experiencing what we know as Eve, to Nocha, the one who's comfortable and easygoing. What is the 10 degrees of transformation? And when we look at them, we see that they dip and then they go up. And then there's Hanchi suddenly there who goes to Elohim, she doesn't even die. And there's another descent. So suddenly this whole series, this pedigree of 10 steps suddenly gets meaning. So now we can say in the Kabbalist style, say, okay, this is 10 degrees to go down. Can we use that sulam or this kind of ladder or these kind of series of transformation to go back up? So I would not, none of it, what even tiny bit was available to me before, nothing. I would not even go there because there's like hundreds, thousands of years of rabbis between me and Torah. Where would I find, I don't know where to start. Yes, Bria.
Yeah, okay. So I'm aware of the time and I'm sure people have questions. Before people ask the questions, but get your questions ready if you want to type it up in the chat or verbalize it. I want to know, Yael, for you, how this process has been to study with Rabbi Magal, and has it affected any way that you think about Beit Torah? It seems like your medium is also the way you described it. It's like clay in your hands, right? It's like the Torah itself is your medium. But I wonder how this Chavruta pairing has affected you in your thinking.
I think it was really, I was really happy that Rabbi Magal knows Hebrew well, that we could read through the Hebrew. And I can tell you the moment where, we just read Miketz, we kept reading it. And the moment when she started crying, I was like, wow. It's not that I cried so many times, but to experience that again is reaffirming that what is happening in the text is very, very deep. It hits us on a cellular level, really. It really does that. And the moment of that kind of acknowledgement often is met with tears. A lot goes into those tears. So thank you for that. That was really it was really important for me because it reaffirms, when you do something like that, go against 1,000 years of tradition telling you cannot do this. This is sacrilege. Everything that you grow up around tells you cannot do that. And you go ahead and you say, I don't have a choice. I have to do it. I have to do that. And to get this kind of acknowledgement is really reaffirming. So thank you for that. And Rabbi Magal really embraced it, and she embraced it on many levels. She joined us in class. She's sponsoring a parasha. Really, I feel that kind of like her power, is really, or if you would like to say, Elohim's power is coming through her. She's passing that energy that comes through a Man Institute, through, the resources, through the Amen Institute, through this collaboration, coming back to Torah. This is very, very affirming. So I really wanted to thank you for that. And your ability to see the movement and to see and to bring your understanding of Kabbalah into that and to see that and be really open to it. This is not obvious at all. Many people closed their doors on me, even this week twice. So, yeah, I mean, that's expected. It's not unexpected, it's totally expected. But the doors that do open, the hearts that are ready for this, it's a real blessing. So thank you for that.
I stepped into the unknown and I found it delicious.
It is. There's so much honey. There really is, like spiritual honey. There's so much spiritual honey.
Well, Ahava from Malibu asked about regendering the Torah. Well, actually, Yael and Tamar have regendered the entire Tanakh, not just
no, not yet. So we did the Chumash, yeah, and we did some of the Megillot. And I've reached all the way to Shmuel Bet. I'm in Shmuel Bet. It's not easy to do all these wars.
No,
it's not fun. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do some of the wars, and then I'm going to go and rest in Tehillim. That's not a resting place. I discovered.
That's Psalms.
It's Psalms. They're not a resting place, really. It's a lot of it is like, oh, they're coming to kill me. God help me. So there's that too. So I guess the only place to really rest is Song of Songs. It's still wonderful, even now that the man is really longing for his, lover.
I was hoping you'd get to that. Can you imagine the Song of Songs reversed? How sweet!
Wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yes.
When he says that when he hears his lover at the door and he's touching the door from the other side. And then he realizes that she's gone. It's just beautiful, beautiful.
So I see some other questions. Greg Marcus says, I had a dream today with a floating tuff. I would love to hear about it in the image. What is that tuff?
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I love the tuff. Thank you for that. So, wow, this is really interesting how this is going to unroll. So the tuff is for Tehovah. We, instead of Yud Hey Vav Hey, now it's Taf Hey Vav Hey, but we call Tehovah the name, and the Taf is the last letter of the alphabet. So it means that by the time we arrive at the Taf, we already went through all the letters of the alphabet, right? And what comes after that? Hey Vav Hey, which is the root for present moment and becoming. And Hey is the sound of the exhalation. The Vav is the esophagus. You can imagine it as the divine breath with two lungs and the esophagus, right? So that's the Tehovah. And what we did, that symbol that has the Yud in it, is the symbol for the future vision of Torah Shlema, a complete Torah. Once we developed the consciousness for Tehovah, then we can bring the two together. And now the Yud is inside, is like a rib or like a tzela inside of the Taf, because the Taf contains, it knows all the letters, it knows all the sounds already because it arrives at the end. And now if you take that Taf and turn it on its head, you get a shape of a pitcher. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because when I was trying to think about Tehovah and about the Taf, I had questions about it. And I met a woman who leads meditations. I met her briefly once and she said, come over. She was upstate. Here I am on the train during COVID, going to visit a woman that I do not know. It's just the feeling that there's something, she has a piece of information for me. And we arrive at her home. She has a really nice meditation space in the forest. And I said, I'm here because I need a piece of information I need to know something about this, and I cannot access it myself. And we did a meditation about the Taf. And in that meditation, the Taf turned on its head, became a pitcher that was pouring, but it was never empty. It was continuously pouring, but it was always full. It had the shefa, the abundance in it endlessly. There was no lack. So for me, that taf is that. It's that ability to bestow in a never-ending state. So this is my experience with taf and tova. It feels really, really full to me all the time.
Yes, it's like the Ein Sof. It's a continuous fullness that is giving and pouring. When you said shefa, that's absolutely that feeling that it's sort of like when we're in a service and we have ahava rabbah and we're taking in love and nurturing as big as time and space. And what's the very next thing we do? We say we're all connected, right? In the Shema, Echad. And then out of that comes ve'ahavta. You're going to want to love every creature and give it and teach it because you've been filled up. So it's this constant flow. And as we get to the end, I might want to offer a little closing prayer. So give me a moment at the end to build on what you just said, because I'm very moved and touched by it. And Greg, what a great thing to say. That's one of my students. A floating taf. So you're floating in the vessel of complete flowing enoughness. And it's a great, great dream.
Thank you.
I see a question from Bimaya.
Bimaya.
Bimaya. Where do you think the bravery to take this on came from? Can you speak to resistance to this idea?
It came because I didn't have a choice. So I studied Kabbalah for over 10 years. And it's also written from the perspective of men. And I'm not saying it is a negative way. It's just how it's written. And the door was closed until recently for many people, actually, to access Kabbalah, especially for women. But then I'm in it, and it's super, there's enormous amount of really, really true wisdom, and it doesn't fit quite right. And after 10 years of studying with the teacher, I heard the teacher say, I don't know how to teach women. And I understood that it's not that he doesn't want to teach women, is that there is in the study, it's built in a certain way. It's built in a certain kind of inner spiritual body that is a male body. It's a male God into a male body. So I lost the teacher. I understood that that's the end. I cannot receive from that teacher anymore. And looking around, I realized I don't have books. We don't have books. The whole huge library of Jewish texts, we don't have canonical texts written that tells us something from the perspective of women and a feminine divine. What is that connection? We don't have it. It doesn't exist. Maybe it did exist. It might have existed in the past, but is not available now for us. The only book that I found is from the third century, found in Egypt. It's not a Jewish book. It was found with Gnostic texts, but it's a deity, a female deity speaking from a female point of view. Totally gender bending. It's called the Thunder Perfect Mind. It's really extraordinary. And when I read that, it's like, okay, so this is what this could sound like. So I felt, okay, these are the shoulders I need to kind of get on in order to even begin to have some kind of a thought or a mind of what this could look like. And then I said, okay, so in my tradition, because I cannot adopt a tradition that I didn't grow up with. The tradition I grew up with is my inner language. The only place I can go to is Genesis. That's the only beginning that is available to me spiritually is Genesis. So I was like, let's go to Genesis. And let's go to that particular moment where when you read it, considering that this is a consciousness building narrative, go to the moment where when I read it, I create the Elohim in my likeness after my image. Okay, that's the moment, that's what happens. So I went there, and that's where I had this kind of, wow, okay, all right, this is not small. And then I met with Rabbi David Ingber, said, listen, I have something to show you. And I showed it to him, and he was looking at it, and he was like, wow, this is huge. And then I walked to the subway through through Central Park, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, feeling, it's not thinking to myself, is a kind of an inner knowing that this is not for me. This work is not for Yael alone. It's not to solve my problem. This is this is for everyone. It needs to be shared. Otherwise, it's gonna kill me. It might kill me anyway, but I'd rather die that way than it being, harboring it or hoarding it. I'm not allowed to hoard that. That is the feeling that came up. So that's why this happened. I think maybe that's why when I read, Tosef saying biladai, I was like, I get it. There's a kind of biladai that needs to happen here. And it needs to come into the world. We all know it needs to come into the world. It's not even, I'm not saying anything nobody knows. We know that the feminine divine needs to rise in the culture in a really, really clear way. We don't have a choice. We have to have it rise because we need to create, we know we need to evolve our society. So, and this is one thing that is lacking, that we know. A lot of things are lacking, but also that we haven't gone into the actual theology, the core theology itself, to the sacred text. We haven't gone into, we went into politics, we went into legal systems, but we haven't gone into the sacred text yet.
Yeah, wow, we could go on and on before wrapping up because the time just flew by. I wanted to ask Rabbi Magal a question, and before you do your closing blessing, which is, how do you think this mode of thinking is going to impact you in your rabbinate and your drashot going forward? Like, do you see it? Do you see it like looking at it through next week's parsha and the parsha after that?
Well, at first I thought I was going to keep it really quiet, and I wasn't going to tell anybody about it. But there's so many of my students here and so many of my colleagues that cat's out of the bag, and I think I am going to mention it next week when the sisters meet Tosef and they come together, and I'll say there are different ways to look at this and to put ourselves in the story in a way we've never dared before. And so going back to B'maya's question, I don't think it was a matter of bravery. I think Yael couldn't help it, and she needed to do this. And the big things in your life, they don't call for necessarily courage and bravery, just getting out of your own way and allowing what has to happen to come through. And then you'll find yourself crossing boundaries that you didn't know you could do, and the boundaries just disappear.
Mm-hmm. I can also tell you, as I grew up secular, and I'm an artist. Why do I need this mess? I mean, I could also, right? Yeah, but it's not, I need this mess.
We are at time, and we're never at the end of a conversation. We're at the beginning, just like when you end your school, it's a matriculation and a commencement. It's not an ending. So we've started, and it's a good beginning. And so what I want to offer to all of you, and especially to Dvir and Bria for being brave enough to get out of your own way and to start this Amen Institute and to allow all of us to study in a whole new way. I can't wait to see what you develop into, and Yael and Tamar to continue your good work. So everyone just take a breath on this third candle of Hanukkah. Feel we're all bringing light into the world in our own way. May each of us learn to move aside and not get in the way of the power that flows through us. May the par'ah within us, seeking answers, allow the tosef of divine inspiration, which is also accessible within us, to allow the emet, the true energy of Elohim, to provide the answers to guide us on our soul path. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for that. Absolutely beautiful. How rewarding for me to hear that coming through you like that. Thank you.
Thank you to all who came today. I think we perhaps have touched you in some way, and you will touch others. We even have an Episcopal priest here with us. We have so many people who are going to take this information and move it forward. And please let us know, let the Amen Institute know, because it's real people. Let us know. And many people wanted to see the recording, so that's going to be available on Facebook.
Mhm. And if you want to hear the recordings of our previous classes, they're on my Facebook feed. They're recorded on the Facebook feed. And of course, you're welcome to join us. Where the next big event for us will be to launch, to publish Shmot, Exodus in Hebrew, towards the end of December.
Okay, wonderful. And Veer, do you want to say any closing word?
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and just worlds open up every time you speak, Yael and Rabbi Alicia. It's just been such an honor to be in your presence throughout this whole process. So really, thank you for enlightening all of us with your art, with your vision, and with your true wisdom. You bring so much to the Jewish community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What a beautiful initiative, the Amen Institute. Good luck. I know it's hard to pick up something like that, to kind of get it together and get it rolling. So bravo.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Happy
Chag Sameach.
Hanukkah.
Bye.